My name is Father Kevin Goodrich, and I currently serve in the Midwest. I'm obviously an Episcopal priest, but also you can tell, also something else. This habit, this set of robes, is that of a Dominican brother or a Dominican friar. And I've been a member of the order for many, many years. In fact, I was a brother before I became a priest. And while I've served most of my ministry in the Midwest, I'm a native New Englander. And I've done stints of service in Canada and Florida and some other places. I've been privileged to preach and teach, do retreats, speak at academic conferences across the Western world. In fact, I did that for the last 10 years. I combined that traveling work with local parish ministry. And fortunately, even though I'm a native New Englander, I am not a Red Sox fan. I am a Cardinals fan, though I'm always happy for the Red Sox to win unless they're playing the Cardinals. So I think we'll probably get along in that sense. I am known for my sense of humor. I like to laugh. I take the gospel really seriously. I don't take myself very seriously. I love the outdoors. I like to get outside. And I love the music of Dean Martin. And if you don't know who Dean Martin is, you can find out pretty quickly just through a quick Google search, YouTube. Why do I feel called to serve at Christ Church? That's a tremendous question that I've obviously spent lots of months pondering and praying over, and working with the search committee, working with the vestry, the bishop, and all of that around that very question. Well, I have a heart for the church in challenging areas. I don't have to tell you if you've been around the church for any length of time, if you've been in life for just a few years and more, you will notice that the church is facing tough times. And that's true across the Western world. I've been privileged to minister and serve, in Australia, New Zealand, England, Ireland, all sorts of places in my traveling ministry. And in fact, in those places, the church is even worse off than it is here in the United States. In New England, my home region, and where Christ Church is in Rhode Island, is actually considered by many people who study this sort of thing one of the most challenging areas, if not the most challenging area in the U.S. to have a church thrive and sustain itself and reach people beyond the church. And so I feel called to serve in that kind of place, a place where it is a challenge, it is difficult. But at the same time, Christ Church is such a wonderful congregation with such a venerable history and a commitment to traditional worship and the Anglican choral tradition and so many wonderful people over the years and a variety of roles and just kind of a unique place, especially in light of what I said about it being very challenging to sustain and grow a church and be vital in New England. So all of those elements coming together, drew me to consider and to pray over serving Christ Church. And I have to admit, I wasn't really entirely sure, just an unusual for a discernment process, until I really got out there, started to meet people, to meet some of you, to see the beautiful building, to get a sense of the community. All that started to kind of nudge me along, as well as my discussions with my spiritual director and some of my brothers in the order about, yeah, I think this is the place that's for my next chapter of life and ministry. I am a Dominican, and that's what I'm wearing. This habit, the Dominican habit, is black and white. So if you see anyone in the Episcopal Church or wider Anglican Communion, the Episcopal Anglican family of churches across the world, dressed like this, well, that's probably one of my brothers or sisters. People are often surprised to know that the Episcopal Church has religious orders of men and women, of monks and nuns, of friars and sisters, just like the Roman Catholic Church does. Our religious life, our communities, our orders are not as large, obviously, but we're not as large as the Roman Catholic Church. But we certainly do have a monastic tradition. And actually, a lot of New Englanders know about this because of the Society of St. John the Evangelist in Massachusetts and that community of monks. Dominicans were founded by, I know this will shock you, St. Dominic in the 13th century. He was a contemporary of St. Francis of Assisi. And together they really renewed the medieval church spiritually and reached the common people. The Dominicans, so much through their preaching and teaching. The Dominicans are a traveling order of scholars and teachers. We have some big names in church history like Thomas Aquinas, some real heavyweights intellectually. But really, the early movement of the friars, which the Episcopal order tries to emulate, is the ordinary brothers and sisters who are just out and about among the people, bringing the gospel. And you'll obviously learn more about the Dominicans, as you get to know me. It forms my prayer life, forms who I am. It's my community. It's sort of my first family. is the order. And so I'm a friar, I'm a member of this order that shapes my life and spirituality. In some ways that are similar and in some ways that are different than maybe some priests. But we'll learn more about Dominicans and Franciscans and probably all the rest, in the months and years to come. Right now, you guys are the absolute expert on Westerly and the surrounding communities and Christ Church. I mean, I bring, history of serving in various places, my background, my formation, my studies, all the things that I, have done in my past ministry, my writing, my speaking, all of that. But while I know a lot about church life and I know a lot about church renewal and church growth and church vitality, that's always been my focus in the churches I've served. I teach that at the seminaries and whatnot. I need to learn about you. I need to learn about you as individuals. I need to learn about you as a congregation. I need to learn about Westerly and the surrounding communities. I'm going to spend lots of time listening in my first weeks. And I'm also going to spend a lot of time asking questions. I ask a lot of questions, so please bear with me as I ask a lot of questions in an effort to get to know you and to get to know Westerly and to sort of get a feel for the place. The ministry of Christ Church, absolutely, but also the wider community that I believe the gospel calls us to serve in many ways. My vision for Christ Church, that vision is not fully formed. That's something that's going to take time, I think, and a process, which even the diocese encourages us to do. But it's going to take some time and process to ponder what is the vision? What is the picture of the future that animates us as a congregation as we look to the coming months and years? But what I can tell you is that I heard several things, several themes from my time with the search committee and from my time with the vestry. There were several themes that got repeated by a variety of different people. One was a hope that Christ Church would remain a vital congregation, even in these challenging times for the church. One was the traditional worship tradition and the choral music tradition, that those would continue and continue to be done at an excellent level. I also heard lots of people talking about a desire for Christ Church to serve the community. And I know you've done that in many ways and are doing that, but maybe to do that in a new way or a fresh way, but to somehow connect to people outside of the church and to meet their needs, to serve their needs, and to share the gospel in word and deed with them. And related to that was a sense by many people who talked about what I'll call being a multi-generational church. Wow, it's really hard to be a multi-generational church today. And yet, when those churches who can do that, who can break the trends of just being an older congregation, but can be multi-generational, all the generations benefit. All the generations benefit by being with one another. But it's really challenging to be multi-generational. But I heard that again and again from people. So those are some of the things that, help me in my discernment of essentially, I want to come to a church that wants to be vital, that wants to be anchored in the venerable traditions of the Episcopal faith, that wants to hold up some of the liturgical and choral traditions, but also a church that wants to take all that tradition and be flexible with it and open to the Spirit with it in order to serve people beyond the church's doors and to see some of those people come into the church, people of all generations, retirees, but also young families and sort of everyone in between across the age cycle. So it's going to take time for a discernment of a really clear picture of a vision for the future of Christ Church. And that's what I'm already praying about. And I hope that's what you're praying about as well. I know you all have a sense of what you hope that next chapter of Christ Church will look like. You have your sense of a vision for the future of our parish. And I'll be listening for that. And I'll be asking you about that in the months and weeks to come. So I hope this helpful, get you a little bit of sense of who I am. And obviously, we're going to spend a lot more time figuring that out over the years and over the initial months. So please keep praying for Christ Church. Pray for me in my transition. And when I come, bear with me. I'm going to have to figure things out. I'm going to need to learn some things. I'm going to need your input. I'm going to need your help. I'll probably make some mistakes, I'm sure. I know I will. I'm human. So, be graceful about that. Sometimes we might even need to have a little conversation, some of us, and just to work out our differences. I'm imperfect. I make errors. And along those lines, too, is, I'm a priest who brings my own ideas and my own background and may not always do things like other priests have. And so it will be a growing process for both of us. also go by Father Kevin, and I really appreciate that. I know not every priest, every person does that, but that's definitely been a part of my practice. Really also ties to being a member of a religious order. Everywhere I go here, where I currently serve, everyone calls me Father Kevin. People in the grocery store come up to me, say, "Father, what's going on?" But that's just part of who I am and what I'm bringing as I come to Christ Church. And I'm looking so much to receiving from the venerable tradition that is Christ Church and the wonderful people, the gracious people, the people of Westerly, people of the surrounding region. Because in a sense, after well over 20 years or more, I'm coming back to New England. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to meeting with you. And I'm looking forward for us to gather together at the heart of all of it all at the altar of Christ Church in worship as God's people, and to let the mission, the fellowship, and all the rest to flow out from our celebration of the Eucharist, our celebration together at our services. God bless you, and I'll see you in a little less than a month.